So we all know that spinning doesn't work in sword fights. Or does it? It's clickbait.
No.
No. This kind of spinning doesn't work. If I'm turning my back on if I turn my back on an opponent, like if you're in a multiple person situation and I've got to like attack him and maybe come over here, it might be inevitable that I have to turn my back. What I would tell you realistically is to position yourself in a spot where you have both of your opponents in front of you. You don't want anybody behind your back. But the idea of taking a big old spin in the middle of a fight doesn't make sense.
I can see it coming and I can parry it, or while he's spinning if I want. Do it again. I can just hit him while he's spinning.
So there's that. There's also the idea of spinning the sword over and over again, doing these big old loop-loops, and most of that is garbage. There are things like the Montante blade where big spins are documented, and we'll get into that in a different story, but something like this, these big spins don't make sense. However, there is the reason they don't make sense is pretty obvious, right? These aren't very, they're very easy to see. Like if I'm coming at him, you can see him, and I'm very open.
If he has a rhythm.
Yeah, if I have a rhythm going, it's very easy for him to slip in there.
Wait.
There is a technique called a Moulinet, which means a little windmill. It's a spin that works, and the way it works is like this. I make a small spin like this. Now, if I am just doing that, it's pretty easy for him to counter. But let's say he thrusts at me. That's a lot harder. And the way I'm not gonna hit you.
No,
The way that works is, and he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
The way that works is I can do this and circle here. There's also sometimes where I can thrust in bait an attack, and he'll go to parry this thrust, and I can roll into here. So this little roll, it's a little windmill, it's a little spin, and you'll notice that when I do it, my sword stays in front of my body mostly. It's mostly here. There's a very slight elbow movement to generate momentum, but this can be seen in a lot of different sword styles. Italian dueling saber, they can be seen in Polish saber. This kind of spinning here, you can do it on the outside or on the inside.
By the way, flourishing your sword for fun is really freaking fun.
Yeah.
And it can give you a sense of comfort with your blade.
That's another thing. We're not saying don't go spin your sword. You should definitely spin your sword. There are advantages to it when you're practicing, because it makes you get used to the weight of the sword. It looks cool. You feel awesome. All of those are great. But when you get into a fight, don't come at your opponent. That said, the Moulinet.
You might get Indiana Jones.
The Moulinet, the little windmill, is a very useful technique that can be employed in a couple of different ways. So it's not something that I would just start in on. It's kind of, and it might work, but it's easier to see because again, it is an attack that's coming. It is a circle, so you can kind of see where it's coming. You can manipulate it though, where I can attack at different angles and kind of disguise where I'm coming. So I could come here, I could come here. All these things where I can kind of change the angle and it's kind of obscured. Now, he could just stab me, which is another risk you run with the Moulinet.
Right, you should do it when, here, let me show you one other thing, sort of a defensive way of doing it. This is a guard position that I like.
Hanging too?
I don't hang it too much.
Okay,
I keep
just
it
kind
more
of forward.
There's different
variations.
But the basic idea is, I'm presenting a threat, but I also have options to do
different things.
Like I can parry the sides by bringing it down, I can parry my head, So if I'm doing like this, and for some reason he goes to cut me,
exactly.
That's another way to do the Moulinet. I might have pulled it back a little bit too much to be dramatic, but if I've taken all the steam out of this cut, I can. I can respond.
You can use it, like you said, you can go to a parry and then riposte with the Moulinet. You can do a seeding parry into a Moulinet. There's a lot of different ways you can use this little spin move that's very effective. So yes, there is a spin that you can do with a sword that is not garbage. There are many that you can do with the sword that aren't garbage, but
it's the sword spinning.
It's the sword. So don't do this.
And by the way, I enjoy a good movie sword fight. It might have a spin. It's easy to ignore. It's for fun. But still, it's like
suspension of disbelief is always a thing. Some of my favorite movies have stupid spins in them. And if you watch my other films and videos, we do stupid spins.
Let's show them Let's pretend we just got into like a bound up close.
Yeah, that could work.
I didn't need to spin as much as I did, but let me try again.
Yeah, if we're here.
If I come in with my left shoulder.
If he's got me here and I'm trying to get around him, that's reasonable, right?
But that wasn't really like me doing a full spin. I was using him as an anchor point.
When you get into a core situation, there are situations, if I'm here and then we both start from this way, I might turn and come to here. Like when you get into a bound up core situation, it becomes less, there are techniques that you can use, but it to some extent becomes what can I do here? What is the most reasonable thing? And sometimes that will be to execute a very rehearsed technique, like some sort of takedown, some sort of thing like that. Sometimes it's going to be to scramble and stab as best you can.
Yes, I know that in the games and the books, Geralt can do spins. I take a little bit of issue with it, but I love the Witcher, and also we're not Witchers. So.
No, we're not Witchers. You and me and him and everybody else in the world are bound to the physiology of normal human beings.
Tell me about the potions.
So we can't spin faster than that. So let's look at some fencing that has some spins in it. Fence. A little bit of whip over.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was through a lot of steel though.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah.
It's okay.
I think it's a while.
Good stab.
A little bit here, but not a lot.
Man, it was an accidental.
Arm.
Fine.
Okay, ready?
Just impressed.
Thanks. My rust game's definitely gotten better since I've been doing all that long sword. Yep.
Okay.
How much was it was flat?
Let me close.
Not enough.
Nope.
You
alright?
That was great. That was a death blow.
I just saw it. And I was like, I can get there.
Yep. Yeah.
You think I would have stopped you?
Unless it was flat.
No, it wasn't flat.
Okay. Yeah, I missed
Alright.
that. You smell that?
Huh?
You smell that?
No, but that would have been, I bet there were sparks.
A little bit, maybe?
Not really. What happened is I went for a thrust, and you stepped out of the way, and I half-heartedly sort of dragged it.
Okay.
I don't think it would have pierced your skin.
Yeah.
That one. I think
I didn't feel it, did you?
it was probably just with the tip, but I felt it drag past.
Okay.
It might not have been enough because it was just the tip. I don't know. So what happened there is I thought I had this out of the way.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and delivered a cut.
I felt it hit
But
something.
what happened is somehow the point came back online and went right here. You stabbed me right
Would
there
have
as I
stopped you.
cut. Oh God, yeah.
So as you guys can see, first off, I'm out of practice on this, but we are using a lot of this kind of movement, this little spin movement, because just the way this delivers cuts, it's very easy to parry and keep going like that.
Sometimes you can, it's hard to know if this is actually happening or if I just think it's happening, but I feel like sometimes you can gain some energy from a parry,
Yeah.
put into it, but I'm not sure if that's actually true because if you think about it,
Yeah.
if I take a parry here, the energy is this way. That's
You
not
redirect
really,
it. I don't know.
it feels like.
Might kickstart your parry.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wind it.
Yeah. I don't know, was that the flat or was that the cut?
It was a cut.
Okay.
I was just worried I
A leg hit!
Well,
was it your intention to hit my leg?
Not really, no.
See?
It was not an intentional leg hit. What happened was I was going for something in this area, and he backed up. My sword followed through and hit down here.
So,
now, if we're doing some kind of fencing that would have been done by guys who were wearing boots.
Yeah, a boot probably would have. It wasn't very hard, so a boot might have stopped that one. But like we said in the previous video about leg hits, usually they're not intentional.
No. We'll count it here.
Yeah, we'll count it.
But
I'm not going to say it didn't count.
It was not intentional.
Okay. It's not like cool way to call your shots.
No. That would be interesting. Good.
You got these two at the same time, though?
I don't know if it was the same time.
Okay.
There was a little bit of a gap, but you're right, I did get you in the head.
In the head.
Good.
That's what I was talking about. So I made a feint of a thrust, and then I did my Moulinet into there.
For some reason, when I went to do my head cut,
Yeah.
I had like windy arm or
Windy
something,
arm.
and it
That
just
happens.
didn't get there fast.
You've been fencing for a minute. It gets tiring. This weighs maybe a pound
The total?
total.
The total weight of this is probably somewhere around a pound.
About a
but
pound. But when you're flinging it around for a couple minutes, it gets heavy.
A lot of it is out here.
Yeah, because it's front balanced.
Yeah, weight isn't everything. It's about balance too.
Yeah.
And you want these to be balanced outward.
Yeah. Because it's supposed to have momentum. It's not like with the thrusting only weapon where you can have a lot of the weight back here, because that's just going to stab. You don't really care.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's flat
Okay.
because I know I hit your guard, so it's probably whippy. And these things don't whip front to back; they whip side to side.
Yeah.
So, thank you for acknowledging, but I think I just whipped over with flat.
Okay. Would I have stopped your head cut? You did hit me. It wasn't very powerful.
I think we both would have taken that hit.
Yours didn't like stick into my head, but your point definitely touched my face.
Yeah.
Near the eye.
I think you probably would have been pretty hurt, and I would have definitely had my arm cut open.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably a double.
Felt something.
Possibly.
Tip.
It was a thrust, but that wasn't where I was aiming. Another type of another common type of leg shot is when someone's coming at you with a thrust.
And you drag it.
And you try and clear the point by putting your sword in the way, and you end up pushing the point down into the leg.
Yeah.
So not an intentional leg shot, but
I don't know that if it wasn't an intentional thrust, that one probably wouldn't have caused me to stop.
I was aiming for a thrust.
You were?
Yeah. So
I felt it drag across. So
see,
I
don't know.
It's really hard to tell.
We can not count it.
No, we count it. I mean, we're not keeping track of score anyway.
But if it was an actual thrust, you would have known.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, it's hard to keep. Like, I will never fence without safety gear.
Right.
And I will never. There have to be very specific circumstances in which I would fence with sharp swords.
Sure.
And you can make the argument, right? That means, oh, this isn't real, this isn't how they would have actually fought. And to a certain extent, no. But are you, like, who's prepared, except for those weird guys in Hamburg who don't do a good job of it anyway?
Yeah, they're weird.
They're weird, and they also do a really bad job. You
They're
can tell they're not actually doing it, like, with intent to
Thank
hurt each
God.
other.
They don't
Yeah,
know
because
what
they'd
they're
just be
doing.
dead. But like, everybody has to make sacrifices to be able to do this at all.
Well, and the more safety gear you wear, there's always a trade-off.
Yeah.
Sure, you might trade off a little bit of the fear, but you also are opening the door to be able to do it a lot more.
Yeah.
Because
And
you won't get hurt as
well,
much.
and I made this comment a while back on a different video that I would much rather lose the very slightest amount of realism because, like, I'm not super afraid of dying all the time, rather than have a 5-month injury of a broken hand or something like that, and then I'm not training at that point.
I hit a guy on the pinky with a whippy little sports saber once, and he lost his nail.
We
I mean,
were
it was an
fencing
injury.
before they made good gloves.
Yeah.
We were fencing longsword, and I'm pretty sure.
These.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my finger got broken, and I just kind of powered through it. It wasn't anybody's fault. It's just that happens.
Honestly, I think before I really started wearing elbow stuff, I think my elbow might be very slightly differently shaped from getting hit with steel plates.
Yeah. I mean, they did not make this kind of stuff widely available when we started doing this.
In my case, it was me just thinking, what does it hurt that bad?
I mean, it might have made it, but it wasn't like we're in Kansas.
Well, and also, like, if you get hit without arm protection, maybe on the top part of your forearm,
yeah, it's fine.
there's little chance of damage, and it can actually be kind of helpful to know that you'll feel a nasty sting with your psychology. But at the same time, if it's off a little bit and smacks into a bone, you can chip your bone.
I don't mind the whip and the sting. I don't mind the bruises.
The pain
I don't mind the pain is not the problem. The problem is like I have like you getting a bone broken means you're not. I broke this bone. I broke my arm in half doing something else. But it was 6 months of me not being able to fence.
Can't fence.
Can't fence.
Not even sport weapons.
Not even sport weapons. So if you liked our video today, you too make sure that you smite the like button.
Yeah, smite it.
Smite it. Yeah. And what should you do the follow button?
Thrust into it.
Thrust into the follow button. I quit. I'm done. If you like this or any of our other videos, please consider supporting us on Patreon.